Welcome back, WNST. Tallying off during this World Series week here. This guy has attended a lot of World Series games, a lot of prize fights, but is most famous for his work in the National Football League. At one point, he was a Baltimore sports writer. He's been plying his trade up with the Chowders for a couple of decades now. First at the Boston Globe, now at the Boston Herald, as well as at the Talk of Fame Network. And you hear his voice here each and every Sunday as we run the Talk of Fame Network programming here right around lunchtime after Dennis has the SSV on WNST. We welcome Ron Borges back onto the program. First to talk some football, some Patriots, some AFC, some Hall of Fame, maybe some Joe Flacco. But more than that, you've got a new book out. And dude, I always promote your Baltimore background and your time here. But Upton Bell, who is your conspirator and co-partner in the crime with a new book, also has incredible Baltimore legacy. So I think for that, there's incredible local interest in your book, Ron.
Yeah, I think that, we still all know how much fire there is for the old Baltimore Colts, and Upton was the personnel director there for their Super Bowl III and Super Bowl V teams. In fact, both of those teams, especially the second team, was chock-a-block full with guys that he drafted for Don Shula. And he's got a ton of stories about the Colts. He started working there in 1960 when, Unitas and all those guys were still around, lived through the Shula-Unitas contretemps for the most part, and, of course, lived through what he calls the NFL's original sin, which was losing Super Bowl III to the Jets, and his recollections of especially the post-game situation there.
Yeah, Bubba Smith was convinced the mob was involved in that one, right?
Oh, yes, he was. Yes, he was. And Bubba Smith also went to the party. A lot of guys didn't, but he went to the post-game party and was dancing with the owner's daughter. So it was like a lot of interesting stuff there. But I'll tell you one quick story that I found fascinating. Upton's first job after training camp was to work in the ticket office. And when Art Donovan retired, it was opening day 1960, I guess it was, they had hired a new ticket manager. 4 or 5 days before the game, they get a phone call from all these angry ticket holders who hadn't received their tickets. And in those days, there were no computers, as you know.
Sure.
Everything was done with a pencil and a piece of paper and a notebook.
And they were literally season ticket books, as we call them here. They literally were like postage stamp books is the way the tickets came, right? They were perforated. They were printed up as a season ticket book, and you received a book in the mail.
Yeah, no, that's right. So all of a sudden, they got all these guys with duplicate tickets. Turns out that the newly hired ticket manager had sold over $100,000 of tickets, double sold them and absconded with the cash. So it was up to Upton and three other guys to try to figure out what they were going to do as these angry ticket people were surrounding the stadium. It's a fascinating story.
Well, and in those days as well, the demand on Colts tickets in 1958, 59, 60, 61, I mean, the Colts were the first hottest ticket in sports, right? I bet scalping began here with the Colts in the early 60s because there was that kind of crazy demand on tickets at that time, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. And actually the Colts were one of the first teams to try to tie and to successfully tie exhibition game tickets to season tickets. And when that first happened, the great John Stedman, a friend of us all down there in Baltimore, went to war about it, even though he was a former Colts employee in the then Baltimore.
Yeah, he called it heresy, didn't he? I mean, at that time, right?
He did, and there was a tremendous falling out between him and Carol Rosenblum, who owned the team at the time, which never really got patched up. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the demand was incredible. And in those days, the guy who was the ticket manager, all the ticket guys would be out front, including Upton. And Upton always used to say you could tell what kind of week it was going to be, because people would be coming up every day to the ticket office. Not like nothing's computerized, and everybody's got a sob story. They don't quite have all the money, but here's $25.
Yeah, well, my dad used to get on the bus and go out there in the beginning of the week and pick up tickets after work. I mean, if we wanted tickets for the game, you didn't want to hear sold out, and certainly for those Burt Jones era tickets and all that. I mean, I remember all that. I remember sitting behind the pole in Section 38 during the Ghost to the Post, and my dad went out there the week of that and got obstructed view tickets, and we felt lucky to have a seat behind the pole out on 33rd Street, right?
Sure, no, you're right. And Upton tells many, many stories about, what it was like. When he first got there, Johnny Unitas was still working the morning shift at Bethlehem Steel Plant. And then play football, and there were guys at liquor stores, or they had
Jim Parker had a liquor store famously, yeah.
Sure, that's right, and distribution deals, and they'd work part of the day and then go to their football job. So it's really fascinating, a lot of these stories. And he was very close with Don Shula, still is, and a lot of great stories about what was going on there when Shula first came, and the sort of genesis of the problem between Unitas and Shula, which Upton believes in part was because they were both too much alike. Unitas almost was used to running his own game, and Shula wanted to start calling a few plays, and they were just sort of never going to hit it off. And one of the things that Upton believes is that the root of it all was, as you know, Shula was a backup player with the Colts and ultimately was traded to the Redskins, and Unitas hosed him in several games, in Raymond Berry and Jim Muschel and all those great receivers that the Colts had. And so Unitas always had trouble looking at Shula as anything but a guy that he could, complete a pass in front of whenever he felt like it, or behind. And so it's interesting. There's many in on the Colts years when Upton was there. And of course, his dad, Bert Bell, the commissioner, had a very close relationship with Cal Rosenblum, and in fact had coached him at University of Pennsylvania and was the guy who got him to buy the team in the first place when the franchise, was really in flux.
He is Ron Borges. He is a legendary Boston sports writer, but spent a little time here in Baltimore and has a new book. And we've been talking a little bit about this book because Ron visits from time to time, every couple months or so, as we promote the Talk of Fame network programming that we do here on Sundays, that he does with Clark Judge, as well as Rick Goose Goslin from down there in Dallas, some of the veteran sports writers who vote each and every year on the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that'll be coming for Ray Lewis in early February as we get out to Minnesota. The book is called Present at the Creation: My Life in the NFL and the Rise of America's Game. It is a book about and sort of by Upton Bell through Ron Borges. You can follow Ron out on Twitter, Ron Borges. That's Borges. And I'm hoping to get Upton on the program later on the week. Let me say this. I've never met Upton Bell. I've never talked to Upton Bell. But I do know he has a legendary Boston side from being a young general manager who was jettisoned during this weird era of ownership and transition to Bob Irsay and the Unitas, running around in yellow pants for the Chargers. All of that happened at the same time, and he sort of hit the exit button and ran off to Boston to take care of the Patriots, playing in that dump down in Foxborough, right? Where, right. With Steve Grogan and Randy Vitaha and John Hanna and all that group. He became a Boston central figure in sports and really became a sports media star in Boston, right?
Yeah, he did. He left after Super Bowl V. He was the hottest young personnel guy in the league at that point. They had built the teams that went to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years and probably should have won them both. Obviously, we were terribly unlucky in Super Bowl III. But yeah, he was the youngest general manager in the league. He was 33 years old. And I'll tell you one little story of the difference between those days, as you know, Nestor, and the corporate way the league tries to operate today. It's unrecognizable.
Oh, we'll get to that. Believe me. I'm not going to get out of here without talking to you about Roger Goodell's future, but go ahead.
But, he comes to New England. He's only been there a few days, and he's got to go to the owners' meetings, or a few weeks, rather. He's got to go to the owners' meetings in March down in Palm Beach. So before he leaves, he tells the secretary, make sure you send out the option letter. Now, in those days, as you know, the players basically were stuck with these Don King-like contracts with this option clause that the owners could renew every March, and basically just kept rolling over forever and ever and ever. You couldn't really escape unless you didn't sign anything, and then sort of ran the risk of being out in the cold. So he comes back 4 days later, and there's a phone message to call Phil Olson, who was a defensive lineman, a former number 1 pick, and Merlin Olson's younger brother, call his agent in L.A. And in those days, very few players had agents. So he calls him, and the guy couldn't be nicer. And he's thanking Upton for being so kind to have allowed Phil to become a free agent so he could go to L.A. and play with his brother, which was his great dream. And Upton's holding the phone going like, what the hell's he talking about? But he doesn't want to give away that he doesn't know. So he gets off the phone and he goes and realizes they didn't send the option letter out because the previous general manager used to do it all himself rather than the normal way, which would be the secretaries doing it. And now he gets a little concerned, and he realizes in short order he has no players. They're all free agents because they've all been not given their option letter. So they're all
wow.
And he has no players. He has no roster. So he had just hired Bucko Kilroy and a young guy named Pete Hadhazy, and he calls them in and tells them, And their immediate response is, well, we got to send a letter out. And Upton, being a pretty cagey guy, realizes you can't do that because A, it's no good anymore because we missed the date, and B, then now they're all going to know that they're free agents. So he's just come aboard on a team that went 2-12 the previous year. So he decides.
Well, the question is, why do you want those guys?
Well, well, there you go. But you got to have somebody, you know. So he said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send new contracts out to every player with a $500 check raise. And lo and behold, every single guy signed the contract, happy to get the $500 raise because they were on a 2-12 team, and he ended up having his whole team back under the option clause.
So it just cost cost an extra $10,000 that year to play football, huh?
Right, which in those days was a lot of
money. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And here's the other thing, under the Rozelle rule, if you lost a guy under that option clause in those days, you were entitled to a compensation from the opposing team, which later, of course, was, judged to be illegal under the antitrust laws. But at that time, it was intact. But it didn't apply in this case because it was the team's own fault. The player didn't sign with somebody else. You let him go. Yet he browbeat Pete Rozelle into making the Rams give him a number 1 draft choice, which later became John Hanna.
He is Ron Borges. You can follow him up on Twitter at Ron Borges, as well as at the Boston Herald and the Talk of Fame Network, heard here each and every Sunday. This conversation brought to you by our friends at Box Hill Pizzeria. The best crab cakes up in Harford County and Abingdon can now be shipped anywhere in the world, including Boston. Go to boxhillpizzeria.com. It's not really a pizzeria. It's more of a crab cakeria, but you know that as well. Don't forget Compass Point Golf Course down in Pasadena is the best place to play this fall and winter. Events, friendly folks. They got craft brews and a great course close to home. When the weather is right, get out to compasspointgolf.com and make sure you make a weekend there. Robert Kennedy will be here talking local college basketball all winter and promoting his golf course down in Pasadena at Compass Point. You can hear all of that out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault at WNST.net. All right, Ron, we promoted the book. The book is called Present at the Creation. I would encourage everyone. It's out this week, literally brand new. My Life in the NFL and the Rise of America's Game, with a guy with really, really incredible, strong Baltimore Colts roots, and then went off to Boston and has incredible stories about the last 50 years in the National Football League. So go check that out. Ron will be promoting that out on his Twitter and signing books at the Harvard Cambridge Public Library as well later on this week. Ron, let's get to the real things that are going on right now. First off, I know the Patriot-Charger game, something that you're monitoring and all that, but before I even get to that, the hit on Joe Flacco's head is the big story here. That, it has nothing to do with the World Series and being up in the middle of the night. But certainly all week, we go to Nashville this weekend. We're throwing this big party down at Piranha's in Nashville on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Want to encourage all of our Raven fans to come down for that. The hit on Flacco's head is probably the worst possible thing you could see in the league, right? Where you have a quarterback running, the quarterback has been told if you hook slide, you can't get hit, you won't get hit, and then it becomes a kill shot on a truly defenseless quarterback because wide receivers and tight ends and running backs, you can call them defenseless because they're stretching out for the ball, but they know the hit's coming. Joe Flacco hook slided and thought the last thing he was going to have to concern himself was a forearm shiver to his skull. And ditto John Harbaugh and Steve Bisciotti. This is the worst part of the league because there's no 15-yard penalty or no little federal FedEx note that's coming your way to put $100,000 or $50,000 in the envelope that's going to change the Ravens. That's the problem with this right now that I think the Players Association needs to get on board with. If you're going to make my quarterback not play for a month, you're not going to play for a month.
Yeah, well, I understand why a lot of people feel that way down in Baltimore. I'm not going to make any friends for myself or sell any books at the moment. Probably saying what I'm going to say, but I didn't think it was as egregious a situation, and I'll tell you why, as some people felt. Although I would agree that I think he could have avoided certainly hitting him in the head if he chose to do it.
If that was Tom Brady's head and that was Tom Brady bleeding from the ear and his head had been knocked off like that, that wouldn't have gone over real big. Or if it was Aaron Rodgers, it wouldn't have gone over real big.
Oh, no. I mean, he'd have been in handcuffs right there on the field. I mean, they'd have dragged him off like Paul Manafort.
Well, what's the difference with Flacco here on Thursday night?
Well, what I'm saying is I would have said the same thing if that hit was on Brady because I believe on that play and on a bunch of other plays by other quarterbacks, so it's not just Joe Flacco. I believe quarterbacks are starting to try to game the system. They know just what you said is generally true. So Flacco was running to try to get the first down. He was not looking to give himself up until the last second. when he realized he couldn't make it. And then he did it, and to me, that's too late. Because now you're asking hotly pursuing defensive players. And I said the same thing about the Alex Smith hit by the kid from Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, where he hit him from behind. Alex Smith tucked the ball under his arm, was a running back. He was running forward full speed at the last second, stopped just before he hit the line of scrimmage and flipped it. Well, if I'm pursuing you at full speed or I'm coming to Flacco and try to prevent him from getting the first down at full speed, and at the last second he hits the deck, that's not what the slide is supposed to be about. And so I thought that it put Alonso in a pretty difficult situation. Now, did he have to hit him in the head? We can debate about that all day long. Maybe didn't. I would probably tend to agree with you that he could have avoided that part of it. But you can't slide at the last second like that and think you're not going to get hit. Because for that to be the case, Nestor, the defense player is going to already be slowing up. And if you accelerate, it's a first down, and maybe you run right by him, and everybody says, what's Alonso doing? Does he know how to play football? So I think that if the quarterbacks want the protection, they got to do one of two things. Keep your ass in the pocket where you have complete protection, or if you're going to run out and you're going to slide, you better hit the deck a lot faster than he did, and frankly, a lot faster than Brady does it sometimes. He got hit that way, not as, it wasn't as violent a consequence a couple weeks ago, and there was no call. And I think that, the hat flying off and Flacco looking like Vincent Van Gogh with his ear hanging off there, I think that intensified the whole thing. But don't get me wrong. I understand why people in Baltimore are upset about it. But I think all these quarterbacks should be alerted. Stop gaming the system. If you're going to go down, go down.
He is Ron Borges up in Boston, and your quarterback hasn't gone down here up there. And certainly for all of the hand-wringing and the angst about the defense there and the problems of the Patriots, you look up, here we are, it's Halloween, and they're 6-2 and looking like they're going to be 12-4, 13-3, or whatever the hell it's going to be. And Kansas City sort of appears to be the only team that might derail a one seed at this point. And, it's a nice little story that the Bills are a little better and the Jets have proven to be a little tougher. And even the Dolphins have been okay on their third quarterback, except for Thursday night. The Patriots are waltzing away with the division as expected, but it's not going to be 16-0, but it doesn't need to be 16-0. They're still going to get a week off in January, and somebody like the Ravens or the Texans or the Titans, somebody's going to have to go up to Foxborough and figure it out on a 28-degree night. Yeah, no, you're right. I happen to think that the Texans, they keep going the direction they're going, are going to be pretty dangerous to anybody and everybody. I mean, they could have won that Seattle game on Sunday. They could have beaten the Patriots a couple weeks prior to that if the kid didn't drop an interception in the end zone on the last drive. So I think they could be that kid quarterback Watson, who I liked. I saw him in both the national championship games. I said, man, this guy, you would follow that kid anywhere. And I think he's really becoming such an important part of their team. So I think they're going to be a dangerous out, a difficult out. But you're right. I mean, it's typical of the Patriots. They haven't played anywhere near their best, but here they are. They're sitting 6-2. And after the Chargers game, I was talking to Devin McCourty, the safety, and really one of the smartest players on the team. And really, I like him because he's a real reality-based guy. And I was basically saying, look, I've been around a lot of winning teams, good teams, and they seem to win these kind of games where they didn't really play to their best, and they had 4 starters out on defense, but they found a way to win. And he said, yeah. He said, you're right, we've done that around. He said, but the truth is, we're 5 plays from being 2-6. And I think that's one of the reasons they win. They don't BS themselves. When they lose, they didn't win the game. They don't sit there spending a lot of time about, well, what about this? And if it had been that. And the Chargers, after Sunday's game, for example, in Nestor, they were talking like, yeah, we lost the game, and yeah, we did 4 or 5 really stupid things, but you know what? We showed we could play with the Patriots. No, you showed you were going to lose to them, like you've done a bunch of other times, because you're idiots. Well, I mean, moral victories are all most people get against the Patriots, literally, Ron, right? I mean, they win most games.
Right, but a lot of the times, it's not because of what the Patriots do. It's because of what the other team does, which is what McCourty went in to talk about. For example, okay, you muff a punt. Well, the Patriots muff punts too. Anybody can muff a punt. But if you pick it up and then run 15 yards backwards into the end zone and you tackle for a safety, and then you punt and give up a field goal, it's a 5-point swing. in a game you ultimately lose by 8, at the end of the game, they should have been driving to tie the game with a field goal and going to overtime. Instead, they got to score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Of course, they don't do it. Patriots win. Well, did they win or did the other team lose? McCourty would say, well, they had as much to do with us winning as we did. Because, and the thing he told me that I found fascinating was how much film Belichick shows these players of just those kind of mistakes that cost either their own team or an opposing team the game. And he was telling me a story about showing them this highlight reel when he was a rookie, and he said, he admitted, he said, I thought the guy was nuts. He said, he's showing these guys not running out of bounds when they should have, or not staying in bounds when they should have. And it ultimately costing these various teams games. He said, but after a while, it sticks in your head. You start to, you see it so much, and you hear him up their buttocks about it so much that when you're in a situation and you muff the punt, you fall on top of it. You don't even think for a minute that, well, maybe I can elude 5 guys that are coming down here
and run backwards.
Spectacular return, which you're not going to do. And that's the difference in a league that's so close. I don't care what the Ravens' record is, or we'll put Cleveland out of it. But other than Cleveland, the difference between the 6-2 Patriots and the 3-5 Chargers and the 2-6 a lot of other teams isn't very much. But if you're going to blow 4 plays, which the Chargers did in that game, you're not going to beat the Patriots.
Last thought for you, and not off the bad teams or the many, many mediocre teams, but certainly the Philadelphia Eagles feeling like they're printing their tickets for Minnesota already, right? I mean, this has been a nice little run for them, and certainly for Carson Wentz. Not just there, but also in Deshaun Watson. A couple of quarterbacks have really emerged as being, special guys in this league right now, and that's good to see.
No, you're right, Nestor, and you see how much of a difference that makes. Wentz didn't play well last year. The Eagles don't look like very good. Now he's playing much, much better and really looks like the guy that they hoped he would be. And they're 7-1. 7-1. They play Denver before their bye week. If they can find a way to win that game, they'll not only be 8-1, but they will have 14 days off before they play the Cowboys, and maybe the biggest game, regular season game for them. Because if they win that game, I don't see how anybody can catch them in their division at the minimum. And they're now in a position of hosting games in January, getting a week off, and when the playoffs start and all of that. So you're right. And I think they're legit. They look pretty legit to me. That defense has been good for a while, very aggressive, very talented. And now they got a quarterback. And with a quarterback, same thing with Watson, suddenly the Texans that were losing games and ended up 9-7, now they're winning more of those games, and they're in every game. Because of Deshaun Watson, and that's the key. And if they're going to get it going in Baltimore, Joe Flacco got to start playing like Joe Flacco, one way or another.
No, there's no doubt about it. We're down in Nashville this weekend. The party is at Piranha's in Nashville all weekend long. Ron Borges is our guest, longtime veteran columnist, NFL writer, boxing expert at the Boston Herald, as well as the Talk of Fame Network. The new book is literally out this week with Upton Bell. Lots and lots of old Baltimore stories here with the former head of personnel for the Colts in Super Bowl III and V, Upton Bell. The book is called Present at the Creation, My Life in the NFL and the Rise of America's Game. You can learn more about that out at Ron's Twitter, as well as at the Boston Herald, anywhere football is served. Ron, we'll check back in here again in a couple of weeks and see when the Patriots get to 10, 11, 12 wins. We'll see where the Ravens are come December. Always great to visit with you, man. We'll be listening on Sunday to Talk of Fame as well.
Have a good time in Nashville. Great town.
It is a good town, especially if you like country music. That's not my thing, Ron. You know that, I'm a rock and roll guy. But I will endure for 48 hours. Piranha's in Nashville is where the party is. All that information out in our WNST.net road trip section, as well as on our Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the internet travels. The buyatoyota.com audio vault is there for anything you miss 24 hours a day. And, of course, you can download the TuneIn Radio app and listen from anywhere in the world as well. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox digitally at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's always $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. And now that the eggnog is getting poured into my coffee each and every morning, I will have to work that out for $10 a month and an hour at the gym. Last but never least, the SSV on WNST heard here on Thursdays. And, of course, Dennis Colazzos and Coons Ford of Security Boulevard presenting our WNST text service with breaking news. We're all concerned about Joe Flacco, trying to get him back onto the field, if possible, on Sunday. The WNST Tech Service will have it first. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday. You can find me anytime, anywhere, nasty@WNST.net, and you'll find us at Piranhas in Nashville this weekend. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.